Hello everyone, this is the introduction to England. So, England is a predominant and the largest constituent unit of the United Kingdom, occupying more than half of the island of Great Britain. England is a country that is part of the United Kingdom. It shares land borders with Wales to its west and Scotland to its north. Here are the facts about England. So, have you heard jumping a queue can be illegal? Queuing is very important in British culture. It is rare to see someone jumping a queue. We all know queue jumping is rude, but it is actually illegal in one place in England, the London's transport ticket machines. If you jump the queue to buy your ticket, you can be fined about £1,000 sterling. England fought the shortest war in history. The Anglo-Zanzibar War is the shortest war in history. This war began at 9 a.m. on the 27th of August in 1896, where the 5 ships of the Royal Navy attacked Zanzibar's Royal Palace. The conflict lasted between 38 and 45 minutes until the white flag to surrender was raised. In this short war, 500 people of Zanzibar died, while only 1 British Marine was injured. England is home to one of the weirdest sports. Did you know that the cheese rolling is the strangest sport taking place every year in Gloucestershire in the west of England? During the spring, in this competition, an 8-pound round of double Gloucester cheese is rolled from the top of the Cooper Hill, and participants chase after it down to the bottom. They are supposed to catch the cheese, but it is kind of impossible, so who crosses the finish line first wins the cheese. England is mostly flat. Much of the land in England is flat, especially in the southern area. There are mountains in the north, but all mountains rise under 1,000 meters in elevation. The highest point in England is Caffel Pike and Lake District National Park at an altitude of 978 meters above sea level. England is the birthplace of many famous scientists. England is home to some of the best universities in the world, such as Oxford and Cambridge. Many famous politicians, scientists, and novelists in the world have graduated from universities in this country. Apart from that, England is the birthplace of many scientists who had a huge impact on the globe. Just to name a few: Isaac Newton, who discovered the law of gravitation and invented calculus; Charles Darwin, the geologist and the biologist known for his contributions to the science of evolution; and last but not the least, Stephen Hawking, one of the greatest scientists of the 20th century. Do you know that the national dish of England is an Indian food? Even though there are different traditional dishes in England, such as Yorkshire pudding, fish and chips, and shepherd's pie, chicken tikka masala is widely considered the country's national dish, even though the origin of the dish is India. And there are no plug sockets in the bathrooms. You cannot find any bathroom in England or in the UK with plug sockets. Because of health and safety rules, sockets are not allowed in bathrooms or shower rooms unless they can be fitted at least 3 meters away from the sink, bath, or shower. The Queen is not allowed in the House of the Commons. No British monarch is allowed to set foot in the House of Commons, which is the UK Parliament. This rule dates back to 1642, when King Charles I stormed into the House of Commons to arrest 5 members. The attempt was unsuccessful, and since then, the monarch was banned from entering the parliament. For those who like to drink, you cannot get drunk in English pubs. British are famous for their pub culture. Pubs are the main hub of various local communities, and they are a place to socialize and have a drink. But you are not allowed to get drunk there, and it is illegal. Jam or cream first on scones. Scones is a type of pastry that is important in British culture, and they are served with jam and cream or butter. But English people can't seem to agree on whether you should put jam or cream first. In Cornwall, you should spread the jam on your scone first, while in Doven, butter or cream goes first. And did you know that the World Wide Web was invented in England? WWW sounds familiar to all of us, but did you know who invented it? Tim Berners-Lee, a British scientist, invented the World Wide Web in 1989 while he was working at CERN. We are all aware of the impact of this invention has had on our modern daily lives. The 10th facts about England is champagne was invented in England and not in France. Many people think that France invented the first champagne in 1697, but I am here to tell you that 30 years earlier, an English scientist discovered how to put the fizz into sparkling wine. Champagne is basically sparkling wine, and it is named after an area in France. And lastly, the popularity of coffee is growing. We all know that drinking tea is an important part of English culture. While tea is still the most popular hot drink in England, coffee consumption is certainly on the rise. Who knows, maybe in the future, coffee will become more popular than tea. And now, let's continue to discuss what are the interesting things to know about England. London is the capital and the largest city in England. The government is a part of a constitutional monarchy, direct government exercised by the government of the United Kingdom. Elizabeth II is the monarch, and it has a lot of population of more than 56,286,961. And did you know that the currency used in England is called pound sterling? The prehistory and antiquity of England. The beaker culture arrived around 2500 BC, introducing drinking and food vessels constructed from clay, as well as vessels used as reduction pots to smelt copper ores. It was during this time that major Neolithic monuments such as Stonehenge and Avebury were constructed. The second picture is the River Thames during the Georgian period from the terrace of Somerset House, looking towards St. Paul's. And the last picture is the Battle of Trafalgar, was a naval engagement between the British Royal Navy and the combined fleets of the French and Spanish navies during the Napoleonic Wars. On the first picture was Queen Elizabeth I. She was born on 1558 and died on 1603. The second picture shows King Henry VIII. He was born on 1491 and died on 1547. The third picture is the English Restoration restored the monarchy under King Charles II in peace after the English Civil War. The first picture shows King Henry V at the Battle of Agincourt, fought on St. Crispin's Day and concluded with an English victory against a larger French army and Hundred Years' War. The second picture is the replica of the 7th century ceremonial Sutton Hoo helmet from the Kingdom of East Anglia. The last picture is the Boudica led on uprising against the Roman Empire. Let's continue to the culture of England. First, we have to discuss the performing arts. The first picture shows the Royal Albert Hall. It is a concert hall on the northern edge of South Kensington, London. Since the hall's opening by Queen Victoria in 1871, the world's leading artists from many performance genres have appeared on its stage. And the Beatles are the most commercially successful and critically acclaimed band in popular music. Lastly, we have to discuss the literature, poetry, and philosophy of England. Did you know who is Geoffrey Chaucer? Geoffrey Chaucer was an English author, poet, and philosopher. Best remembered for his unfinished frame narrative, The Canterbury Tales. It is a collection of 24 stories that runs to over 17,000 lines, written in Middle English by Geoffrey Chaucer. It is widely regarded as Chaucer's magnum opus. Geoffrey Chaucer has been called the father of English literature, or alternatively, the father of English poetry. He was the first writer to be buried in what has since come to be called Poets' Corner in Westminster Abbey. Chaucer's first major work was the Book of the Duchess, an elegy of Blanche of Lancaster who died in 1368. Two other early works were Anilida and Arcite, and the House of Fame. He wrote many of his major works in a prolific period when he held the job of Customs Comptroller of London. The Canterbury Tales tells the story of a group of pilgrims traveling from London to Canterbury to visit the holy shrine of St. Thomas Becket. It is a story made of stories. Each of the pilgrims takes a turn as a storyteller, with a banquet of promise to the person who tells the best tale. Are you ready to know what are the three Canterbury tales to be discussed in this video? Just keep on watching.
In the Night Tales, in the Canterbury Tale, Theseus, Duke of Athens, is a mighty conqueror returning home from a conquest with his new wife, Hippolyta, and her sister Emily. He comes upon a large crowd of grieving women, whose husband has been killed by King Creon that cannot retrieve the bodies. Theseus is angered and set off for Thebes. Kills Creon, captures the city, and returns the remains of the slain men to their wives. He takes two knights as his prisoners, cousins and sworn brothers, Arcita and Palamon. Palamon and Arcita see Emily through the bars of their cell window, and they both fall in love and argue about who saw her first. Arcita is released from prison in exile, but cannot see Emily any longer and it upset him. Palamon invests Arcita's freedom. Arcita has a dream of the god Mercury, who tells him to go to Athens. Arcita dresses like a poor worker to serve Emily's household and becoming the most valued man. Palamon has spent several years in prison and finally escapes. While Arcita goes for a ride in the woods, Palamon is hiding there. Palamon recognizes Arcita and he bursts out and challenges him to a duel. Meanwhile, Theseus decides to go hunting with Hippolyta and Emily. He rides into the woods and comes upon the man. He breaks up their fight. Palamon reveals who he is and says the servant is really Arcita. The woman begs Theseus to have mercy. Theseus proposes that they each bring 100 knights and battle for Emily's hand in marriage. In part, 3 times passes and Theseus builds a large stadium with tiered rows for spectators and 3 temples devoted to Venus, Mars, and Diana. Arcita and Palamon arrive with their knights. Palamon prays to Venus to win. Arcita prays to Mars for victory, and Emily prays to Diana that she may remain a virgin. But Diana tells her that she must marry. The both men have been promised to Emily. The god Saturn worked out the plan. In part, for Theseus forbids killing an injured man, weapons are not allowed to be used, and other restrictions are set for the battles. The contest lasts until evening. Palamon is wounded and worse, exhausted, and he relents. Theseus declares Arcita the winner. Venus is angry that Palamon didn't win. Saturn reassures her. Arcita rides towards Emily and his horse suddenly frozen, and he dies. Theseus, believing that after grief there should be bliss, tells Emily and Palamon to marry and live in contentment and love unbroken. The Knight's Tale is considered romance, and typically romances end with a marriage. The characters are idealized. Theseus is noble and manly. Emily is beautiful and gentle. The knights are chivalrous and eager to fight. The theme of love, sex, and fellowship plays an important part on this tale. Love trumps another friendship and makes a man into false.
Oh, hello everyone, and welcome in our video summary of the Summoner's Tale. The Summoner's Tale is part of the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. So, let us begin. The Summoner. The Summoner is described as a very ugly man. His job is to call those who sit trial in the church. In the story, the summoner is angry after the friar. In response to the friar's disrespect, he tells the other pilgrims about the story of friars in hell and how they are living under Satan's butt. This story also serves as the prologue to the longer story. There once was a friar who went around asking for donations and promising prayers and salvation. However, he always forgets who he talks to and never makes the promised prayers. Then one day, he goes to Thomas' house, who is rich but uneducated man. Thomas is suffering from an illness, and the friar tells him that he and all the other friars have been praying for his health. Thomas' wife enters, and the friar fondles her. She asks him to preach Thomas about anger because he is angry all the time. The friar goes back to Thomas and preaches to him about excessive wealth and its sinful nature. He urges him to donate some of his wealth or give everything to the friars. Thomas says he has something for the friars as long as he promises to share it with the others. Then, Thomas tells him to reach beneath his buttocks for something he has hidden. The friar reaches down and the old man farts on him. After that, the friar is angry and goes to the house of a wealthy lord. He tells the lord of the incident and says he cannot be asked to share what cannot be divided. The lord's servant cheekily described how to divide a fart, and all laughed. Now, this story is in response to the insulting one the friar told. The friar in the story also serves as an example of irony. He do the opposite of what he supposedly preaches. While he preaches for donation, he is greedy, and while he is supposed to be chaste, he fondles and kisses Thomas' wife.
The Reeve's Tale in the Canterbury Tale. This story talks about the miller who is dishonest and often steals from the corn that people bring to his mill for grinding. One day, a steward sent his mill to be milled, but it's too sick to go and watch the miller grind it. So the miller robs him from what he sent. Two nearby students, John and Alan, hear about this and decided to make it right. They go to the mill to watch the miller grind. The miller knows what they're up to and untether their horse so that he can steal from them. They chase their horse and finally they catch it after dark. Now that it is dark, they ask to stay at the miller's house. The miller has a wife, a 20-year-old daughter, and an infant son. They have only 3 beds, so the miller and his wife sleep on one next to the cradle. A daughter sleep on one, and the 2 boys sleep on the third. The boys think a way to get revenge to the miller from stealing their grain. Alan declares he will sleep with the daughter. John invades to his friend, and so he tricks the miller's wife by moving the baby's cradle next to his bed. The wife goes out to relieve herself, and when she came back, she mistakenly thinks John's bed is her own because the cradle is next to it. So she climbs in and they sleep together. Alan gets up early from the daughter's bed, and the daughters tell him where he can find the flour that her father stole from them. He gets up to find John, but mistaking the bed without the cradle next to it is John. He climbed to the bed with the miller he thought is John. He whispered to the miller he thought is Jan that he had a daughter 3 times that night. The miller gets up, furious, and begins cursing. Now everyone wakes up, and the boys grab their flour and flee. The reeve's tale talks about a miller who is dishonest and stealing grain. The story has a main character, Alan and Jan, who got revenge to the miller from stealing their grain by seducing the miller's both wife and a daughter. The reeve's tale is the response to the one before it, the miller, while the miller's tale played with the same themes as a knight's tale. The reeve's tale is more obviously in direct response to the miller. The reeve's tale concludes the story by saying, "Trickster will get tricking."
The Canterbury Tales is interesting to learn and to watch. Did you get a lot of lessons from it? And if you do, thank you for watching this short introduction of England and the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer.